folks, Captain Sam Dinsmore here on the quarterdeck of Providence, and today for our video we are going to be talking about a really important piece of navigational, well, it's not navigational equipment, of safety equipment, pardon me, the EPIRB. EPIRB is an acronym which stands for Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon. Our EPIRB is located here in this white case on the quarterdeck, and before we break that out, I want to talk a little bit about where EPIRBs come from and how they work. So in the 1950s, Russia developed what became EPIRB technology, transmitting beacons that allow you to rescue people who are in distress. And the first ones were used on airplanes, which makes sense, but quickly were adapted to other venues. There are different types of EPIRB-like devices that are not strictly speaking EPIRBs. So there are position indicating radio beacons on airplanes, on submarines. You can get personal locator beacons for when you're hiking in the backcountry. And they're all really great at one thing, which is telling the satellite system where they are. EPIRBs don't actually tell the rescue organization where you are. They tell the rescue organization where it is, and you just need to hang on to it and be really close by when rescue gets there. So EPIRBs transmit a frequency on 406 megahertz, which is picked up by non-geosynchronous satellites that use the Doppler effect to perform trilateration in order to find where the signal is coming from. Now, in English, that means that it shrieks at these satellites. The satellites pick it up and listen to the way the signal changes, because the satellites are rotating around the Earth, which is also rotating. And the Doppler effect is the phenomenon where sound increases in pitch as it comes closer or decreases as it moves farther away. And that's used to determine where that EPIRB is. Now, modern EPIRBs are a lot more accurate than the original varieties. They are sometimes called GPIRBs. And GPIRBs are different in that they transmit a hex code which tells the rescue satellites where the signal is coming from to within about 100 meters, significantly narrowing the area of search. Previously, strictly radio, not GPS, having EPIRBs could narrow the search down to about 2 kilometers, which is small when you're out in the middle of the ocean. About 100 meters is a lot smaller, and it makes rescue that much faster. So before we get it out, let's talk about how the EPIRB works. The EPIRB is activated by salt water once it's out of its case. It will not activate in its case. There's a magnet in there that prevents it from doing so. So once it's out of its case, it activates and starts yelling. Now, what's really cool is modern EPIRBs emit a signal for 0.5 seconds over an amount of time spanning 2.5 minutes. And they do that just in case there's more than one EPIRB going off somewhere. So the signal gets transmitted up and is received by satellites, which are run by a consortium of nations that all agreed to buy into this 406 megahertz rescue beacon scheme. So once the consortium satellites have the signal, it's transmitted to the official national agency for wherever it's coming from. Once the national agency has it, it's transmitted to the local agency or the rescue group that will actually be doing the rescue. Once the rescue group has that information, they use their receivers to triangulate where the signal is coming from. And then they go and they scoop you up and rescue you. This is a really important technology. I feel pretty strongly that all boats that go offshore should have an EPIRB. The satellite system and the consortium of nations behind it was started in 1982. And since 1982, 28,000 people have been rescued in 7,000 different rescue incidents because they had an EPIRB. So let's look at our EPIRB and let's figure out how to test it and take it out of its case safely so the Coast Guard doesn't show up here in about 5 minutes. An EPIRB can be activated in one of two ways. The way we're going to look at right now is we're going to take it out of its case and manually activate it. So to do that, we pull the cotter pin that's retaining the case cover, we remove the case cover, we remove the EPIRB. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk about the hydrostatic release. This is a hydrostatic release, and the way it works is water pressure reaches a certain point, I believe it's up to 4 meters, and that causes the hydrostatic release to explode slightly, and it cuts a switch and it jettisons the EPIRB out of its case. Once the EPIRB is free of its case, it can activate. It can't activate when it's sitting here on deck inside its case because there's a magnet in the case that prevents it from doing so. Once the EPIRB is out and comes in contact with water, it will self-activate. But we are going to test ours today. We test it once a month, and this is how it goes. There's a switch here on the top, and in order to test it, you pick that switch up. If I wanted to activate the EPIRB, I would push that switch all the way over, breaking a very small plastic pin. So you kind of have to mean it when you activate these things. So I pick up the switch, it beeps, it flashes 3 times, and the strobe blinks once. And that is the test concluded. There you go. You are required to register your EPIRB. Here in the US, we register with NOAA, and we're given a specific number. And that number right there is part of what is transmitted to the satellite that eventually transmits it to the Coast Guard, who comes and saves us. So folks, that is how an EPIRB works in a nutshell. I'm not going to film me trying to put it back in the case because it's notoriously difficult, and I try not to swear during Tall Ship Tuesday. So thank you once again for joining us. I'm Captain Sam, and I will see you next time.